Hello, everyone, and welcome to this session of Building Your Data Extraction Template in Covidence webinar. Welcome to those joining us on YouTube as well. Our most recent webinars, Essentials of Writing a Protocol, we discussed the process of writing a protocol. In last month's webinar, Covidence Extraction 1, we presented and demonstrated our most recent updates. We demoed how to create, modify, and publish data extraction templates. Next, we demoed how to manage reviewers, extract data from studies, produce consensus, and last, the export process in Covidence. So, if you have not had a chance to watch the previous webinars, we recommend that you go back and have a look after today's session. We will build on the knowledge shared during the previous webinars. In today's session, we will use a protocol and extract the data in real time. My colleague will be pasting links to both webinars and the link to the protocol in the chat at this time so that you can follow along. This protocol is designed by our consultant systematic reviewers who are experienced reviewers. Today, we will provide a step-by-step approach to create a template using Data Extraction 1 newest features. You will get to see the finished product. My name is Delindia Green Lachlan. I am a community support manager here at Covidence, and I'm based in the US. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Razia, a consultant systematic reviewer who is also based in the US. Geeta, a consultant systematic reviewer who joins us today from the UK. And also Sylvia, who joins us today, who is also a community support manager based in Kenya. Sylvia will be answering questions throughout today's session. We will be your session presenters today. This webinar is aimed at new and experienced users interested in acquiring skills to better use our Data Extraction 1 template. Some housekeeping before we begin. All webinar attendees are muted, but we'd love to answer your questions, so post those at any time. Please post your questions that you feel are relevant in the question and answer section. We will follow up with you via emails afterwards if we don't have time to answer in session. We're also recording the webinar, and you will receive a link to the recording by email within the next 24 hours. But before we jump in, I'm going to provide a little bit of contextual information about Covidence. Covidence was created by and for the research community and is designed to streamline the review process from title and abstract screening through to extraction and risk of bias. The platform allows our review teams to significantly reduce the amount of time spent on reviews, meaning researchers are able to produce high-quality evidence faster. It is only when you are done with setting up your review team, deciding on the research question, developing the search strategy, you've run the searches on the databases, and have a list of potentially relevant studies that Covidence comes into the picture. The purpose of this webinar is to demonstrate how to build an Extraction 1 template using a protocol while providing tips for an efficient template design. Our demonstration will include a summary on how the protocol elements map to the template sections. Today's demonstration will also include starting with the protocol to the creation of the data extraction template and the role of Covidence supporting this, followed by a question and answer session. Our goal is that by the end of the webinar is to make using Extraction 1 the most efficient and effective tool for your review. Before we get started, we would like to run a poll. We would like to know how confident you feel creating a template in Covidence using your protocol. Let's take a moment to answer the poll. Okay, the results are coming in. Okay. I can see that there's 73% that have cast their vote. Okay. Okay, we're still voting. 78% have participated. Go ahead and cast your vote. Okay, we'll go ahead and end the poll. And we can see that 4% very confident, 48% somewhat, and 48% not confident at all. Okay, so we will hopefully at the end of this webinar, most of you will feel very confident. I will hand it over now to Razia.
Thank you so much, Delinda, and thank you everyone for responding to the poll. I will now share my screen and hopefully you can all now see my screen. All right, so before we dive into the template creation, let's ensure that everyone understands Covidence' current template structure. So the template is structured into sections that are designed for various review types, though it was initially optimized for intervention reviews. Each section is customizable, allowing you to add fields that are specific to your needs. The platform integrates the knowledge base, and so it really offers you the best practice for each of the section. Template that you create is then promoted to all the studies in extraction, ensuring consistent data extraction across your reviews. Finally, there are multiple export options, so you can export to RevMan 5, RevMan Web, you can export as a CSV or an Excel. Covidence template is organized into 5 main sections: identification, methods, population, intervention, if it's an intervention review, exposure, if it's an exposure review or other phenomena of interest. And the last section is the outcomes and the results section. So each of these sections serves a specific purpose in your data extraction process, and together they provide you a comprehensive framework for capturing all relevant data from your included studies. And lastly, we are continuously improving our data extraction one experience based on the ideas that don't come from us, but they come from you. And this is what our development process really looks like. So users, they give us the feedback, and then our team listens to you, and then we ship improvements. It's ongoing. So if you haven't already, tell us what you need, because chances are you'll see it show up in Covidence data extraction in the future. When it comes to creating the data extraction template, there's no best way to create the template. It really depends on your review purpose, the type of data that you're collecting, and your specific outcome of interest. That said, the process generally follows 6 main steps, starting with the creation of data extraction template. So you would need to customize your template to fit your specific review needs based on your protocol. This template serves as a structure for all your extractions. Then you publish the template. So before any extraction can begin, you must publish your template to make it available for all the reviewers. Then start the extraction process on individual studies by clicking start, and Geeta will show you afterwards. So you can begin a few studies as a pilot. This is something what we recommend, and you can do that even before the screening is complete. For dual reviewer extraction, you would need to do the consensus, but for single reviewer mode, this step is skipped. Then once the extraction and the consensus are complete, you can then export your data in a CSV format or an Excel or in RevMan format, like I've already mentioned. And the final step is really to analyze the data, which happens outside Covidence, where you import your extracted data into a statistical program, whether you're using Stata or SPSS. So you can import the CSV that you export from Covidence to your statistical software. Today, we'll mainly focus on step 1, that is creating an effective data extraction template that's based on your protocol. In extraction 1, the template that you create will control the data extraction form that will be used by the reviewers to extract data from individual included studies, as you can see here. During the data extraction, you will locate the data that you will need in the PDF and capture it to enter into the data extraction form. Now, before we dive into the demo, let me explain how different sections of your protocol they map to the corresponding sections in the Covidence data extraction template and what key information goes into each section. Starting with the study design. So the study design information from your protocol maps to the method section where you'll capture design type and information about the grouping or the methodological approaches. Then comes the population section. So that detail map directly to the population section where you'll document eligibility criteria, baseline characteristics of the participants or the cases. Then comes the your protocols intervention section or the exposure section, or if it's a qualitative review, then the phenomena of interest. So that is all something that will go into the Covidence intervention section. But this is flexible based on your review, as I've mentioned. So you can use this section for exposures and observational studies, phenomena of interest in qualitative studies, or test indexes in diagnostic reviews. Then your protocol's outcomes maps to the outcome section in Covidence, which accommodates quantitative measures like continuous or dichotomous, as well as qualitative outcomes for if you are conducting a mixed method review or a qualitative review. Finally, your data synthesis approach influences both the methodology and the outcome section as it determines what type of data you need to extract and how it should be structured. So this flexible mapping approach ensures that your template will collect the right data regardless of your review type. Without further ado, let's see that in action. So, right. So you were given this protocol. So it was something that we sent in the reminder email twice, and also it was something that was pasted in the chat at the start of this webinar. So if you hadn't got a chance, so you can still look at the protocol, and I'll walk you through for now. So for the purpose of this webinar, we are using this protocol, which is for vitamin C versus placebo for the prevention and treatment of common cold in adults, and it's a mixed method systematic review. So this is a great example because it contains multiple intervention types, both quantitative, qualitative, and several study designs. So before we dive into creating our template, let's first look at the review objectives that we have to understand what we're trying to achieve. So our review objectives are to determine the effectiveness of vitamin C versus placebo in preventing common cold, to evaluate the effectiveness of vitamin C in treating common cold is in adults. Specifically, we're looking at the symptom duration, we're looking at the symptom severity, and also to explore and synthesize patients' experiences, perceptions, and attitudes regarding the vitamin C use for common cold. So as we can see, this review has three main objectives: evaluating vitamin C for prevention of cold, evaluating vitamin C for treatment of cold, looking at the duration and severity, and lastly, we are exploring the qualitative aspects of patient experiences. Now, as we move through these sections of the protocol, we will build our template section by section in Covidence. So the purpose is to show you how to identify the key elements in your protocol and then how we can translate them into a well-structured data extraction template in Covidence. To save some time during this session, I have highlighted the sections that will inform our data extraction template, and we'll look side by side with our protocol and the data extraction template. And this is arguably the most important step because a well-designed template really starts with understanding what exactly you need to extract and which is something that you define in your protocol. So I will start by going into one of the reviews. So this is my review summary page. When you go to your extraction section from your review summary page on the top right, you will see these buttons blue, create the data extraction template, create quality assessment template. So before you can actually extract the data, you will first need to create a template. So I'll quickly go here, click the create data extraction template button, and then this is really the template that's how it looks like. As I mentioned, there are five main sections: identification, methods, population, intervention, outcomes, and the results section. And so we'll start with the intervention section. This is a section where we capture all the basic information and the bibliographic details of the study. Covidence already includes some of the default fields in the identification section, and it's divided into three main sections. Identification: first is study details, the second are the author details, and the additional data. So in the default fields of the study details, we have got the sponsorship source, country, setting, and any comments that you might want to add. And in the author's details, we have name, institution, email, and the address. So you see there are checkboxes. So if there's any information that you do not want to extract, you can simply unselect here, and then you won't see that in your data extraction template. Under additional data, you see there is the start date, study start date, and study end date by default. I am going to add some additional fields based on the study needs or review needs. So here we're including clinical trials. So we might be interested in by the way, these fields, either you can delete them if you're not interested in it. For example, if you're not interested in the start and the end, you can change it to study duration if you want. And you can add as many fields as you want, and they will appear as the text box when you're extracting your data. So yeah, so as I mentioned that we're including clinical trials, so you might be interested in, for example, study registry ID. So I can add that here. Then you might also want to know that whether it was a single center or a multi-center study. So you can add in here the study centers. Then you might also be interested in the publication type. That is to distinguish between journal articles, conference abstracts, or any unpublished data. So these fields really help us organize our studies and track important characteristics that might influence our analysis. Next, let's configure the method section. And this is where we will capture information about the study methodology. Let's look at the protocol again for the guidance. So under the study design, it says that we will include all study designs, maybe randomized control trial, non-randomized cohort studies, qualitative studies using interviews, focus groups, or surveys to collect data on experiences with vitamin C for adults, and also the mixed method studies. So we can see that our review will include various study designs. So we will need to capture this information. In the method section, we have two default fields under method details, this design and group. So design is something which is a drop down with options of all study designs. Here, I would like to highlight that for with each section, you will also see this example preview, and I would highly recommend that you do that because then you would know how exactly it looks like in the form. So you see under design, there is this drop down, and then from this drop down, just make it a little bigger. So from this drop down, you can actually select the study design that is the design of the study. Then we have this group, which is a multiple choice field for parallel or crossover group. And then all the additional data is like short answers. So I'll just show you here in the template. So this is design and the group, which is a multi-choice field. So you will see here parallel and crossover design. So if you're doing, if it's an intervention, if it's an RCT, then that's something very applicable. If it's an observation study, that would not be applicable. Then under additional data, we can add fields to capture important methodological details. And this could be anything related to the methods of the study. An example that I could give from this protocol is, for example, under Under data synthesis and analysis, it says that prevention trials and treatment trials will be analyzed separately. So we should capture that distinction. And one way of doing that is that under additional data, what we can do is we can write, for example, study purpose, and then in the bracket, we can add whether it was a prevention or a treatment trial, or it could be both. So, while I'm in study purpose, you can basically use this for to write in the entire objective of your study, but it's just an example of using this field for any distinction that you might want to make in your study. Then, so I also mentioned that we are in the qualitative data, it could be using interviews, could be using focus groups or surveys to collect the data. So one thing that we might want to extract would be method of data collection. And so here you can add whether the data was collected via interviews, via focus group survey, or any other thing. So you can even add those in the bracket, like I have done that prevention, treatment, and or both. You can add in brackets like focus group surveys or others, and then enter whichever is applicable while you're extracting your data. Then let's set up the population section here. And this is where we'll capture details about the study population. So let's look at what our protocol specifies about the population that we're including in this review. So it says under population that we're looking at the adults aged 18 years or older, including both healthy adults and those with underlying conditions. Studies exclusively in children or adolescents will be excluded. For studies with mixed ages, we will include only if data for adults can be isolated or if the majority are adults. So this is what it says about population. To summarize, we are interested in adults 18 years or older, and we need to note whether participants have any underlying conditions. So here, let's look at the default Covidence population section. So these are divided into three subsections, population details, any additional data, and any baseline characteristics. So for population details, we have like inclusion, exclusion criteria that we can write in, any group differences that we can note here. And then under additional data, we have total sample size, number of withdrawal, reason of withdrawal, any other thing. And then we have these baseline characteristics, and this is where this field really helps us understand the characteristics of the study population. Right, so if any of the fields are not useful, you can unselect. If you're not interested in group differences, you can unselect and it will not appear. Similarly, for any additional data, I've already shown you in the previous section, you can edit, add, delete anything based on your protocol needs. For the baseline characteristics, again, I will quickly click this example preview to show exactly how it looks like. So all the other sections are short questions, but baseline characteristics, that will come in the form of a table for each of your study group. Right, so what we have here by default is mean age in yours and the standard deviation for that. You can add further demographics like in addition to the age, you might also be interested in the gender distribution. So you can add in like percentage of females, for example. Or here we need to note we are including both healthy adults and those with underlying conditions. So we can add in this baseline characteristics on how many were healthy, what's the proportion of healthy population, what was the proportion of underlying population. And the way we can add here is that we can add in health status here. And then in the bracket, we can say, for example, percentage of healthy adults and then percentage of adults with underlying conditions. You can also add this in separate rows if you like. This is just one way of doing it. And also we can use this to extract baseline characteristics that will be useful to know for the analysis. So for example, our protocol here, it says that additional subgroup analysis may examine differences by participants' characteristics. So, and it says that vaccination status or the smoking status. So that is something we can capture in the baseline characteristics. So I can add in like vaccination status and then simply copy it from the protocol or smoking status, like what was the baseline smoking status among participants across all the study groups. And you can add in any other information that you might want to collect. For example, what was the baseline BMI? And what we highly recommend is that you enter your units so that this is to ensure really the consistent data extraction across studies and across reviewers as well. And then you can use this baseline characteristics for extracting any comorbid condition that you might be interested in. Next is the intervention section here. So let's set up that. When you click here in the intervention setup now here, and I'll expand it a little bit so it just becomes clearer. So what it will do it will show you a preview on the right hand side. It's an example preview. So this is to really show you what the forms would look like. And the left-hand side is the editor where we'll define the study groups and their characteristics. May it be intervention groups, it could be exposure groups, or it could be any phenomena of interest. So you would need to use this for to list your study groups. So let's look at what our protocol specifies about the intervention. So I'm going to go to the intervention section, which is here. So it says that we're interested in vitamin C administration used to prevent or treat common cold. In any formulation or dosage, we're looking at oral vitamin C supplements, we're looking at intravenous IV vitamin C, and timings can be prophylactic or therapeutic. We can also, will also include co-interventions only if the effect of vitamin C can be isolated. So, and also in the comparator and control, it says that placebo or no treatment will be our comparator and our control. So, our protocol indicates whether vitamin C was used for prevention or treatment, details about the dosage and formulation, route of administration, and information about the comparator, and that could be placebo or no treatment. So, based on this information, now I will define the following intervention groups. So first, vitamin C, our main intervention. Now this intervention, it could be prophylactic or therapeutic. One way of doing that is that you specify in the template, maybe by using this bracket, whether it was prophylactic or and then you can add another intervention and then you can write in therapeutic, or you can also do that when you're actually extracting the data. Like you can see on the right hand side, you can specify group name, and this is something that Geeta will show you in detail. But really, what I'm trying to here emphasize is that um, in the start, you might not know what exactly was reported. So you can really use this group naming for that when you're extracting the data. So for the second one, I am adding my comparator group. So I'm adding here placebo, and then I will add here no treatment. Also, since we'll be gathering the experiences of the intervention, so I will add here exposure to vitamin C to collect that information. Now, once we have added all our study groups, made intervention, exposure, anything, then we will need to enter the characteristics to capture the details about our study group. So I'll click here next, And then here, there are few default fields, number of participants allocated, dose, frequency. So either we can remove, we can edit, or we can add more. So number of participants, something we are interested in. We need to know how many participants were allocated in each of our intervention group. Dose, here we can specify, yes, dose, but what dose of which? Um, for what? So we can specify dose of vitamin C. We can specify frequency of administration, and we're also interested in route of administration, because it says that we're interested in oral, intravenous. So what we can do is we can say route of administration, and here we can add in options that we have specified in a protocol, oral, IV, or IV, and other. Then we also discussed that we will be looking at any formulation. So I can add in here formulation. And what's the formulation? It could be either tablets, capsules, or syrup. So I can add that in the bracket here. So based on, yeah, whatever specified, you can collect those characteristics of the intervention. So for therapeutic intervention, timings relative to the cold onset is something that you might want to extract. So these characteristics would really allow us to extract detailed information on how vitamin C was administered in each study for each group, which will be very important for when you're interpreting the results and conducting your subgroup analysis. Once you're happy with that, just click done, and it will be something you would see auto-populated here in the template. Now, the last section is the outcomes section, and this is where we'll define the outcomes that we want to extract and their time points. So when I expand this, I can see what I need to add here, the name of the outcome, the type of the outcome, and the time points here. So let's look at what our protocol specifies about the outcomes that we need to extract. So outcomes should be analyzed. The main outcome is, or primary outcome of interest is the incidence of common cold in studies reporting strategies to prevent common cold in adults. Then in additional outcomes, we have duration of cold episode, we have symptom severity, and the patient experiences. So the protocol defines one primary outcome, which is incidence of colds, and several secondary outcomes, which is duration of cold episode and symptom severity, patient experience, uh, uh, yeah, so duration, severity, and qualitative outcomes. And it also provides details about how these outcomes will be measured, like the cold episode will be measured in days from the onset, severity will be reported as symptom scores and all. So we have that in the protocol. Now we can enter that accordingly to our template. So here in the name, I will specify, as we mentioned, the cold incidence is something that we're interested in. I can enter here number of colds as our outcome, and this is a dichotomous outcome. When I say dichotomous, the reason it's dichotomous is because we're counting whether someone had a cold or not. So it's a yes or no outcome. So therefore, it's a dichotomous outcome, and we are interested to look at this time point at baseline, end of the study, and we can also specify any other point, midpoint. So for example, for the study, we might want to look at this at 12 weeks, and then you can drag and drop as you need for the time points. You can do that. Then the second outcome that we have here is duration of cold here in the secondary outcome. So I can add in here duration of cold, and duration of cold, it's a continuous outcome. So I'll change the type to continuous. Why it's continuous? Because duration is measured in days. In days as a numerical value that can take any value within that range. So, and it's something that we will measure per episode, maybe. Per episode for both the group intervention and the control group. Then we are also interested in severity score, severity of illness. So I can add here severity of illness, and this is something, this is a continuous outcome, because severity is typically measured on a scale with a range of possible values from 0 to 10, or with symptom scores as mentioned here. So that's a continuous measure. And again, we might want to look at this outcome at um, baseline 12 weeks, for example. Then I am also interested in collecting patient experiences. So I just added an outcome, and here I can type in patient experiences. And this is something, this is a qualitative outcome because this captures non-numerical data like perceptions, beliefs, and experiences that are expressed in words rather than numbers. And we want to collect that experiences during intervention. And we also want to collect this information, like the experiences, patient experiences after intervention. So I can add such time points as well. Then in the outcome details, there are a few things that are there by default, but you can deselect, unselect anything that you feel is not um, relevant to your review. It includes scale, range, unit of measurement, direction, data value, notes. Lastly, in the results data here, by the way, for the outcomes that we have added here, Covidence will automatically create fields for capturing details of how the outcomes were measured and reported. So, results section is where you will see all the available standard data. So here, if whatever you select here in the type of the outcome, when you click here, view list of data format, it will direct you here in the results data to show you exactly what are the standard formats available for either continuous data, dichotomous data, or the qualitative data. For continuous, we have the default fields like a mean, standard deviation, total. These are all preset in the templates, so you can select either of these. However, there's also flexibility in the study form to change this to different measures based on what the study really reports. For dichotomous, we have like events, totals. For qualitative, we have findings, themes, quotations. If you want to collect any results format that are not in this standard list, what you can do is you can add the custom data formats. For example, here I have an outcome of severity of illness, and I know that this can use several severity scales. So I want to know which severity scale did they use. So under my continuous data, I can add here um, I can add here severity scale. So as a custom outcome, and then this is where I will be able to collect that information. Then, similarly, in the qualitative outcomes, I want to categorize it into themes. I know there are themes already, but if I want to if I want to categorize it into, for example, theme one, theme two, or if I want to extract any additional details, so I can add in those custom information as I need. Um, you can come back to this template and add any custom data formats at any time during your data extraction. And once you're happy with your template, you can then click publish here in blue so that you can start your data extraction. And then once you do that, how really the for study form looks like is something Geeta is going to demonstrate. So I'll hand over to Geeta now.
Hey, thank you so much.
Mm,
Yeah, I'll just wait for some for the screen sharing.
yeah, I've just stopped sharing, so you'll be able to
Right.
share your screen.
Thank you very much. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, Razia. That was a great walkthrough through the how to create a template in extraction one. The next step is once you've published this template, I need to start extracting my data. So we'll have a look at the demo review now, which is the vitamin C for the common colds. This is actually a very similar template that Razia has published. Actually, it's the same template that Razia has published, and we'll look into the included studies and how we can extract these data from each section. So I'm going to go into the extraction one of the study, and now I'm back here. I can see now that Razia has published the template. This button will turn white. So it was blue in the beginning and now it's white. So now we have this data extraction template that we can go again, walk through it just slowly. So this is exactly what Razia has created from identification, from methods, population, interventions, again, which could be your exposure or other phenomena of interest, because I've seen in the chat a lot of our users asking if this is something that could be utilized if I don't have an intervention review or if it's health related. It doesn't have to be health related. It could be any type of intervention, even in social sciences, and or it could be an exposure or other phenomena of interest. And we'll have a walkthrough now through these, how it actually looked like when you, and how each section created in this data extraction template will be reflected within a form of an included study. So your included studies were going to be available on the left screen here, the extract tab. There's going to be another tab which is referring to the compare or consensus. So by default, you are doing extraction in dual reviewer extraction mode. This means you are two reviewers who need to extract the data and a third reviewer to resolve the consensus. And then once you have resolved the consensus and for these studies, then they will move to the complete list. And this is if you have published both the data extraction and the quality assessment template and you completed both at the same time. So we'll go into the next section again to extract the data. So once a template has been published, you can click on the Start blue button. So similar to this one here, you'll have that available, a Start New blue button. So I'll click on that, and then I'll be assigned automatically as reviewer 1. So this is what the actual form will look like. This is the PDF on the left side of the screen. This is the view for any data extractor. And the right-hand side is going to be the sections that you just created on the template, in addition to the summary. So the summary is an extra section here on the form, which will have more or less an overview of how all the form is looking with all the data you have extracted for each field, and the complete button for you to just click on that once you feel that you have completed the extraction process. So the identification section was the first stage or first section of that Razia took you through, and it's the place again to collect all the relevant information about your study. It could be the funding, country and settings, and so on. So this is, as you can see, you'll have some yellow suggestions here highlighted in yellow. And this is as well that Razia also mentioned that now Covidence in Extraction 1 will help you include data automatically, and this is through the use of a large language model and the metadata as well for both open and closed access PDFs. So, and this is only relevant in so far until now, only for the identification and intervention section. So more to come and for it to be available for all these sections. So you'll see these automatically in yellow. You need to either accept or reject this suggestion. And then the moment you do that, you can always continue, let's say similar to this one, you can continue to edit this as well manually. And if you notice that everything is automatically saved, so anything you also copy paste from the PDF will then be automatically be saved. So more or less you can all easily copy and paste data from your PDFs into the extraction form. And while you do that, everything will also be automatically saved. And whether you accept any suggestions, as I just did, that will also be automatically saved. Next is the methods. So Razia talked about the methods section to be a place to collect the design information about your included studies, aims, and conduct of the study. And she mentioned about the drop-down list, which will have all the most common 7 designs. And if you don't find the one you need, you can click on other and then add the study design you need. Okay, and for any additional methods data, this will have text fields, as you can see as well, that you can add the data as well, again, from copy pasting from the PDF and pasting it into the form. Next is for the population. So the place to collect the data about your participants. So any default fields, including the inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, group differences, will open in text fields. And for additional population data, similar text fields as well will be applied. The only table here at the moment that will be created is for your patient's characteristics. So I'm just going to, oops. Oh, I stopped sharing my screen by mistake. Sorry. Are you able to see my screen again?
Yes, we can.
Okay, right. Excellent. Thank you, Nancy. So now what we can do again is just have a look at how the actual baseline characteristics will look. You'll usually show as table in a table format, and they will show in rows. So all these characteristics that Razia just added, the mean age, female, BMI, health status, vaccinations, smoking status, all relevant to my baselines characteristics of my participants are showing in rows. And the overall column is going to be the column that will also be available by default. But if you want to include your interventions or the exposure groups, once you select them, then from the next stage, you'll go back and then add the information you need for each group, for either each participant's characteristic. Okay, and next is, and the reason actually we do that and why they're not included from the very first instant is because each included study will have different interventions included. So we cannot expect what will be included. And this is why we only have the overall column available at the very first thing. And then you will see the later on the ones you need only after you have selected them here from the checkboxes. So this is the intervention section, which is, again, I need to highlight that it could be for relevant to your exposure or other phenomena of interest, similar to the exposure to common cold. So it doesn't have only to be, it's not only the place needed for only the interventions. And again, if it's an intervention, it could be medical, health related, or also something in social sciences as well, and other phenomena of interest. It could be a concept even, if you're following a qualitative review. So in this case, I also, once I'm on this section, I select only the interventions needed and included in this particular study. So let's say I've clicked or ticked the vitamin C and placebo as an example, and then just I tick the exposure so I can show you how, if you are dealing with an exposure, how this will look like as well. So also, since the large language model or the automatic suggestions are enabled for the intervention section in extraction 1, you'll see a yellow banner at the top right, and this will summarize the interventions or arms that were identified in the full text or PDF. So this means that now vitamin C and placebo were detected for me, and this is really will make it easier for me to more or less connect or link that to my intervention. And the reason the links to suggestion field is available, it will usually display a drop-down list, as you can see, with all the possible as well intervention groups or arms there that were identified. And it's really important to connect these automatically, to connect or match these. So hopefully, and that will really make a lot of, in the future, will support the development of future automation features. So sometimes you might not see this yellow banner, and if you cannot see that, so what you could do is use the add group name. So let's say if you're dealing with vitamin C, but it was recorded as ascorbic acid instead. So, and that was not in the list. So that's absolutely fine. You can use the group name. If, let's say, in this case, you can use group name as well if you are dealing with multiple groups for an intervention. So it could be that also Razia mentioned that it could be that for the vitamin C, she might deal with different doses. So 500 milligrams dose, and they included the vitamin C with 1,000 milligrams. So you can see now that I'm actually then more or less creating a multiple group, which is linked to my template defined interventions, and adding the group name for accurate reporting. So I have vitamin C with 500 milligram dose and 1,000. It could be not only that, it could be, let's say, this is used for prophylactic purposes, as well as Razia suggested. And this is, let's say, therapeutic. It was given therapeutically, and was given prophylactically. You can do the same for your control arm. And if you have, again, a exposure instead of an intervention, you could do the same, exactly the same. You can give the exact name of this, let's say, reported exposure. And if you have multiple arms or groups for the same exposure, you could use the plus icon as I just did and report that. And in this table, you'll see the rest of the characteristics of your interventions or exposures that you've added, showing each in as rows, and the columns will be your interventions or group arms. Next is the outcomes. So you'll always see the list of all the outcomes listed. But that doesn't mean that you need to include all of them, because for each study, it might be that you at least you have one outcome included. And in other study, you have three, in other study, you have two, and in other study, you have all of them reported. So you can only as well tick from this boxes, the check boxes, the ones only reported. So in this case, I'm just going to give an example of selecting the number of colds, duration of cold, and the patient experiences as an example. So each outcome will also open in a table, reflecting the time points as well. So you can choose the time points you need. But before that, there's an add reported name column, icon here that you could use in case, let's say, sometimes the outcome was provided with a different name. So you could use the exact name again for accurate reporting. So instead, let's say, number of calls, I could use cold frequency. And instead of duration of cold, I, let's say, would use the length of cold. And finally, for patient experiences, let's say Razia probably selected this as a qualitative measure, but let's say if it's reported as a continuous measure and you have different scales within the same study reporting on patient experiences, then you can use or type the name of the scale, and then that was recently released this week that you can add a sub outcome to the same outcome. So let's say I have another scale that was used to assess the patient's experiences, for example. So I'm just giving a name that, an example now, that you can also add multiple sub outcomes within the same outcome as well now. And again, you can select only, so you have the list of all the possible time points that Razia added from the template, but it might be that this study reported only the baseline and end of study. There's no 12 weeks, so we can remove that. The baseline could be that they started at day 0. So you can be specific as well with the add reported time, and end of study was 5 years, for example. So you can be very specific as well, and all of these data will export as well. And finally, for the results data section, so for each outcome in this section, you'll have a separate table, and there where you can then extract all the raw data. And it could be, of course, depending whether you have selected this outcome to be qualitative or quantitative outcome, then you can extract the numerical data if needed, and the qualitative data as well if needed. So let's say the default for format for dichotomous outcomes is the events or the number of participants with an event, in other words, and the total is referring to the N, the big N, which is the total sample size. So you could use that or just change the one to something else that was reported. Maybe I just want to report on relative risk and my 95% confidence interval along with the p-value. So you have this flexibility. And if you've added in the template the custom data as well from the template, you can then that will be available on the list, so you can add that. And for the duration of cold, it's a continuous outcome, so the default is mean, standard deviation, and total. But this is similar to dichotomous data, can be, let's say, changed to different study format. Let's say I'm switching from a mean to a median, and it's from a standard deviation to an interquartile range, for example. And patient experiences were reported as qualitative outcomes. So we have findings, themes, and codes are the ones added by default. But you can, again, from this drop-down menu, select only the one you need. And so for finding, let's say, because you have this is a qualitative data, so you expect a text to be added. So this is absolutely fine. There's no restriction whatsoever. And in this case, instead of themes, I would like to add theme 1 and remove that and add theme 2 as well from my list. And these are the custom data that Razia added on the template. So there's an edit template button as well here that you can take you back directly to the template if you want, if you have decided to, let's say, do some amendments to the template, add additional field or delete, then you can do that. And the moment you publish that, it will take you back to the exact same study. Okay, so this is more or less about the extraction process. I just want to highlight a few things that are more or less permissions for the reviewers working on extraction one. So for the extraction one, again, for anyone, the moment you click on the start button, then you'll be assigned automatically the first reviewer, unless in the settings you have selected or needed a specific person to be the first reviewer in all the studies. And reviewer one will be able to create all the interventions and outcomes. However, reviewer two will have a different view. So I click on continue to show you how this will be different. So reviewer two will not be able to create or sorry to add any interventions or outcomes, and will then need to make changes. You need to check with Razia. So let's say Razia is the first reviewer assigned on this study. It might be that Razia have missed some outcome, interventions or an outcome that you needed to add. So you can then consult with Razia, or so she could add it, or you could then use the manage reviewers functionality and then assign yourself as reviewer one. So this is up to you, and you can consult the team with, and there's more in the settings that you could more or less control. Let's say there's a rule where you can assign a specific person to create or even edit the data extraction template. And also then you also have an option to, let's say, assign a specific people to resolve the consensus, and as well as for a specific person to be the first reviewer in all these studies, for example, if you need as well. So there's more on the settings of the review for that. And if you want like then to export all this data, you'll then see the export button as well available here or on the review summary page. And then you can export the data, whether in a CSV or in an Excel sheet, or even to RevMan, as well as Razia as well, highlighted in the beginning of the session. So this is all for me today. Thank you so much, and I will hand it back to Delindia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Geeta. Thank you for your detailed demonstration, and thank you, Razia, for an excellent presentation and demo today. Today, we have learned how to build an extraction template in Covidence using a protocol-driven design with field customization while providing tips for an efficient template design. Today's demonstration provided a step-by-step approach in real time, from protocol to building your extraction template in Covidence. Before we wrap up, I would like to run another poll. Having watched the webinar, how confident do you feel in creating a template in Covidence based on your protocol? So let's take a moment. So Geeta, would you run the poll?
Oh, yes. Now,
Yes,
I think Razia
great.
have done them. Thank you,
Sorry.
Razia.
Great. We can see those answers coming in. Thank you. Okay, look like the numbers, we're seeing more very confident, somewhat confident. Excellent. Okay, we'll go ahead and end the poll and share the results. So we can see 29% very confident, 67% somewhat confident, 4% confident. So we will have the recording emailed for those of you who would like to review it a second time. It will be available to you. So we'll stop sharing. So what to do next? Try out our Extraction One tool and demo review. Do not forget to sign up for the next webinar in June titled Mastering the Screening Process for Systematic Reviews. You can scan the QR code to sign up. Also, you can access our ebook, Practical Guide to Data Extraction. Geeta will now copy the link in the chat. Download your copy today using the QR code located on the screen. And the session has ended. Let's see. Feel free to contact support@covidence.org or visit our knowledge base for more information. This session has ended. but we see that there are several questions remaining. We will stay back an additional 15 minutes, and Razi and Gita will continue to answer more questions. Thank you, and have a nice day or evening, depending on where you are joining in from today. So I'll
Thank you,
hand it
Gita.
back over to Razia and Gita.
Right. Thank you so much. We see a lot of questions, so thank you for the engagement, and we will start to respond to those. So I see John has asked what happens if you modify the template after articles have been extracted through the data extraction process. Will previously extracted articles be added back to the list of articles needing extraction, or do you have to go back and search for them to bring them up to date with the new template? So you have a choice. Once you publish your template, after you edit your template, you can either move the studies that you have already started extraction back to incomplete, so that you can extract additional fields, or you can also apply the changes to the subsequent studies. Gita, do you want to add anything to that?
No, yeah, same. And we have actually received this few times, really, and yeah.
Right. So then I see that I'm waiting for an example to building a data extraction template for social sciences based review. So basically, it really depends on what your what are really the characteristics that the elements that you want to extract, and based on that you can change that. And the reason that we chose today this mixed method review is because we wanted to show several different types of reviews. Hopefully, we will plan something in the social sciences field as well. So thank you for your feedback on that. Then we have this question, will there be a session on template 2? We are not planning right now, but we'll definitely let you know, and you'll get an email if we do plan to conduct a session on data extraction 2. Then we have this question about I'm preparing an evidence gap map. Does Covidence support data extraction for this purpose? So for the evidence gap, I would say that the main limitation would be that Covidence doesn't have an inbuilt visualization tool for creating the actual map grid, but you can extract information. Like basically what you can do is you can structure that extraction template to capture the key dimensions that are needed for your evidence gap, typically the interventions on one axis and outcomes on the other. And then you can set up your intervention and outcomes, ensuring that your categories and subcategories are you have captured that are needed for your map framework. The population section is something that basically you can use any section for your own reviews. So for example, the population section that you can use for any important contextual factors or any subgroups that you might to highlight in your map. So yeah, I mean, but again, since we don't have an inbuilt visualization tool, so you would need to export your extraction data in Excel or CSV, and then you can use the external software to create that visual map. Whatever we enter within the brackets are the options. No, currently we unfortunately do not have any options for adding multiple choice questions. So whatever we enter in the bracket will remain in the bracket. But hopefully you will see that in the future, because we are really improving the template based on your feedback. So thank you for the feedback. So we will definitely emphasize that and send your feedback to the product team for prioritization. Would be great to have the webinar and the quality assessment template at some point. So for the quality assessment template, we are planning some changes, and hopefully once we improve the quality assessment template, we will conduct the webinar. Currently we support currently the default template is Cochrane Risk of Bias 1, but you can customize it. The only issue is that there are actually, I saw a lot of quality assessment questions, so I will just address those. Yes, you can customize, but the problem is that currently you cannot customize the judgment options, like those are high, low, unclear risk. So if any quality assessment tool that you're using has three options, then you can sort of customize it accordingly. But if it has more judgment options than three, then you might not be able to customize. So hopefully we will improve the quality assessment tool. If you're using ROB1, then it's very easy. I mean, it's there by default, so you can use that, Cochrane ROB1. Otherwise, we'll make some improvement, and we'll definitely conduct a webinar on that. Then right. So I see a few questions about that you have your elements and you're wondering how to extract those. So basically it really depends. So for example, I see that you have your country, region, legal mechanism, implementation level, things like that. So for example, you're in country, you would see by default, but then for any additional data that you want to extract, like legal mechanism, implementation level, you can add the additional fields under either identification, wherever you think it's more applicable. And then you can also use like the dedicated method section for things like challenges that were identified. And you can use outcomes for adding like key actors, enabler, things like that. So it really depends on how creative you are in creating the template and adding the fields that you want to extract information about. Right, so then we have, I'm collecting the trace minerals in addition to the heavy metals. For reindeer and caribou, would I use interventions for this information? Now, it really depends. Yes, the minerals, if they are the exposures of your review, then you would use the intervention sections. But since you said that you are collecting these minerals for reindeer and caribou, so you might want to add those under intervention. Like those are your groups, reindeer and caribou, and then you can add in the minerals that are reported in your review as outcomes, because you would be extracting, I'm assuming, but if that's not the case, do correct me if I'm wrong. But if you are extracting information about those minerals, then you can just add those in your outcomes, and then add like your you can specify your outcome type as continuous, and then you can record the information and capturing the units of measurements, ppm and everything that you generally do for the minerals. So, all right. And then I'm preparing, Jing is asking that I'm preparing to conduct a scoping review, unlike systematic reviews, which has a very clear inclusion-exclusion criteria. Or included literature might be different types of articles within the scope of my discussion, including comments with data or viewpoints. In that case, how would it be appropriate to extract the data? So even for your scoping review, you can adapt the tool, adapt this data extraction tool, because it does, as I mentioned, like in this demonstration, we had several study designs, but we could use this use data extraction one to extract that sort of information. Like for example, I added publication type in the identification field, and then um you can add like in the publication type, add in the brackets like original research, commentary, viewpoint, editorial, case study, things like that. And for the extraction itself, so it will be if it's like viewpoint, which I'm assuming would be qualitative content, so you can add in your outcomes. You can select qualitative, then you can add your custom fields like key arguments, main perspectives, or conceptual framework, um, things like that. And you can like add fields for the evidence type. So again, you can be as creative as you can with the template. Um, right. Geeta, would you like to answer a few questions?
Yeah, actually, I'm doing that on the chat while you're
Okay.
doing that, but I can carry on. Actually, I thought there was an interesting one that we could do it live actually as well.
Mhm.
So there's one that's saying I had a problem entering a descriptive text and the word limit it was exceeded. So I would highly recommend that you can then contact us at support@covidence.org and we can have a look with our engineering team to see what's going on. Is there as I'm not sure if there is word limit. It might be that there is, but it's better to have a look at it at support@covidence.org and just email us and with the review ID or the title and we can have a look. I can see that there are a few questions about the ability to add drop-down lists or single choice options or multiple choice options. And this is something we have raised to our product team. We currently do not have this available in extraction one, but yes, this is something definitely we can, hopefully release in the coming future. And yeah, we usually, you know, um, flag all these feedback to our product team and which will definitely help with work and that will help our product team with releasing these features sooner. The more we get these frequently, the sooner we have released these features. Um, Also, there was another one about there's another as well, Razi, about the research gap map, but you've
Yep.
dealt, yeah, great. Thank you very much. And there are a few about the quality assessment and the
Mhm.
ability to, let's say, use the JBI risk assessment tools and Covidence instead of Cochrane risk of bias. So yes, the default, no, sorry, it's not the default, but you can choose the Cochrane risk of bias one. So there's a button that you could use to click and, for the Cochrane risk of bias one, but then there's another button for the custom template. And this is where you can then add the, let's say, JBI risk assessment or any other qualitative tool that you're, thinking of using. You could also use multiple tools at the same time, quality assessment tools. It's just that you have to add them all in one template. And then when you export the data, some of these that are just empty, you just have to delete. But this is something also we have raised to our product team to ability to make it more easier for users to just to select the quality assessment tool and for it to populate. But this is all work in progress. But yeah, in the time being, if you have a different quality assessment tool, you can click on the custom template option in the quality assessment template. That option will be available for you or this button, and then you can click on it and populate your own domains. Um, Also, there's plenty of questions, Razia, and I think you've dealt with it as well about scoping reviews. Users are, asking whether they should use extraction one or extraction two. To be honest, extraction one is suited for scoping reviews, and specifically if they're intervention scoping reviews. However, if you feel that your scoping review is very qualitative, I feel that data extraction two is an option as well. What do you think, Razia?
Yes. Data extraction too is an option, yes, but it really depends on the type of scoping reviews. So, we do daily concierge sessions, and I do get a lot of people who are doing their scoping reviews, and I was successfully able to help them build their template in data extraction one as well. Because again, it is although structured, but it can be as flexible as you want it to be. So even for scoping reviews, yes, you can use data extraction one, unless it's like your review is very unstructured, you don't know anything before you start extracting your data, then I would say then you can go to data extraction two.
Yeah.
um
And there's another question about the integrating AI features in data extraction. So then in the identification today section that we just showcased and the intervention, this is available. But for the rest of these sections, the large language model hopefully will be applied and available to provide all the rest of the automatic suggestions and all these other sections, something that is work in progress as well. So for the time being, we have only that available in the identification and the interventions section
Mhm.
as
um
AI. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
I'll-
we're right at time. Maybe one more question, Razia, you can take.
yeah, I was just there are few outcome questions. So I'll just address those very quickly. Like how about various time points that are needed to be added? For example, different studies reported different time points, how to set it up. So you can add whatever time points you are interested in your template. And then as Geeta showed you, when you're actually extracting the data, you can remove any time point, plus you can specify further. So for example, if you have written endpoint, so endpoint for one study could be 1 year, for another study it could be 1 month. So then within your template, you can specify what exactly was the endpoint given in that study, and any irrelevant you can just remove it. But the key is to add as many time points as you're interested in when you're creating your template. And similarly, in the question about how collecting the same outcome for different instruments, you can add multiple out. So you add one outcome, like I've added severity of illness in this. I added that. Then when you're extracting your data, if there are different scales that are used within the same study, you can add even multiple outcomes of the same outcome, or you can in the group name specifically, you can specify what was the scale used. There's also an option specifically for the scale, so you can use that as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Razia. Thank you for Geeta staying back to answer the questions. I would like to remind you once again, in June, please attend our next upcoming webinar, Mastering the Screening Process for Systematic Reviews. Thank you and have a great day or evening wherever you're joining in from.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you so much.
Thank you.